Hello everyone, Jolene here from Bookworm Adventure Girl. Welcome to another episode of Mondays with Margaret. I know it's Sunday and not Monday, but here's the thing, I need to get caught up on all of the Mondays with Margaret books because I really do want to finish before the end of this year. And it's already the end of November. Plus, I have so many other videos that I need to get out before 2021 becomes 2022. And I have plans for 2022, which I will be sharing with you soon. So in order to do everything that I want to do, it means, doing some Mondays with Margaret episodes before and after Mondays. So on those days, we will just have to pretend that it's Monday for a little bit. And also I am working on the library. It's in progress. That's why I'm out here. So anyway, let's get started. Today we're going to be talking about the second book in the Mad Adam trilogy. It was published in 2009, and that is The Year of the Flood. And I'm still kind of waiting to see where I stand with this. I'm not sure if I enjoyed this more than the first book. I don't think I liked it as much as Oryx and Crake, but I'm going to suspend judgment until I've read all three. Something is telling me that all three together will kind of give me an overall perspective that might be more meaningful than my thoughts on the individual books. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the characters, the story, and the themes. There are characters from Oryx and Crake that we see again in this novel, including Amanda, Bernice, Glenn, who we know as Crake, and maybe the most memorable, at least for me, would be Jimmy, who we know as Snowman, and who was the narrator of Oryx and Crake. So he is no longer the narrator in The Year of the Flood. That role goes to Wren, or Brenda, from Oryx and Crake, and Toby, who I don't recall being in the first book, so I think that Toby is a new protagonist. This novel takes place over 25 years, and it focuses on the effects of the waterless flood, which is basically a disease that is wiping out the entire world's population. And we are introduced to this disease in Oryx and Crake. There are two main groups, the lower class and a religious cult called the Gods Gardeners. And they predicted the pandemic, and they are very eco-conscious and eco-centric. There are rules about not eating meat, what you can and can't do with the dead. They believe that they will be the ones to save the earth. And I would say that the most important characters in this novel, or at least the characters who are narrating the story, are two women, Toby and Wren. And the narration alternates back and forth from Toby, who joined the Gardeners in order to survive after her parents die, and then Wren, who works as a dancer in the Sticky Zone in the Sex Smart at Scales and Trails, which is a high-end sex club. So I think Atwood must have enjoyed naming things in this novel. There's the Sticky Zone, the Sex Smart. It's spelled Seksmart. But obviously it's a combination of sex, which is what they're selling, but also the sex of people that have formed different groups. There's also Scales and Trails, which is a spa. And then there's a spa called Anooyou, and Anooyou. There's the Corpse to Corpse, which is the corporation that's controlling everything, or almost everything. Animals and Food have like mishmash names, and some of them are very entertaining. So I think Atwood really enjoyed that part. Other characters in the book are Lucerne, who is Wren's mother. And Lucerne is with Zeb. And Zeb is Adam 7 in the Gardeners. So this is why Lucerne and Wren become part of the Gardeners. Lucerne doesn't actually follow the teachings of the Gardeners, but she wants to be with Zeb. So the leaders of this cult are called Adam and Eve. And being part of God's Gardeners, although it is a sect as well, it seems to kind of be the best of all the evils in a way. They promise salvation. They kind of give a way forward that doesn't exist in the external world. The new world that exists no longer allows for freedom of choice. The corporation is really the one who is in control, and everyone that has survived needs to do whatever they can in order to continue to survive. So the new world is also ruled by violence, and then reading this during a pandemic was very interesting. There are definitely similarities between the waterless flood and COVID. So the story begins after the waterless flood, but both narrators reflect back on what happened. So we can kind of understand, their stories and the corruption that took place and really is still taking place. Each part of the story begins with like this teaching from Adam 1, and then there are stories from Ren and Toby. So I'd like to read a quick passage, which starts on page 91. And this might sound familiar to anyone who has lived... Hi, you want to hear the reading? Okay, to anyone who has lived through a pandemic. And then it also kind of gives you some background as to the teachings of the God's gardeners. Let us today remember Noah, the chosen caregiver of the species. We, God's gardeners, are a plural Noah. We too have been called. We too forewarned. We can feel the symptoms of coming disaster as a doctor feels a sick man's pulse. We must be ready for the time when those who have broken trust with the animals, yes, wiped them from the face of the earth where God placed them, will be swept away by the waterless flood, which will be carried on the wings of God's dark angels that fly by night, and in airplanes and helicopters and bullet trains, and on transport trucks and other such conveyances. But we gardeners will cherish within us the knowledge of the species and of their preciousness to God. We must ferry this priceless knowledge over the face of the waterless waters, as if within an ark. Let us construct our Ararats carefully, my friends. Let us provision them with foresight and with canned and dry goods. Let us camouflage them well. May God deliver us from the snare of the fowler and cover us with his feathers, and under his wings may we trust, as it says in Psalm 91, "And thou shalt not be afraid of the pestilence that walketh in darkness, nor for the destruction that wasteth at noonday." May I remind you all about the importance of hand washing 7 times a day at least, and after every encounter with a stranger. It is never too early to practice this essential precaution. Avoid anyone who is sneezing. Let us sing. And then there are different actual songs or hymns that are throughout that Atwood has written, but no need to worry, I am not going to be singing to you, so I will save you from that. So Toby and Ren are both isolated, and they're wondering if there are other survivors. And the ending of the book in some ways comes full circle back to Oryx and Crake, where there is a group of people called the Crakers, and these people are genetically modified. So I think that this is why I am kind of waiting until reading the 3rd book before saying too much about it, because I feel like there is something still missing. You know, Oryx and Crake set things up, and the Year of the Flood, gives an overview of how various groups have tried to survive a world that has, drastically changed. And they have survived under some horrible circumstances. But then what? So on its own, I don't think that I would have enjoyed this book as much, but knowing that there's more, my hope is that it will kind of bring it all together for me. I did really enjoy the themes in the novel. Atwood is very good at bringing a variety of themes into a story, and that is certainly the case here. So there are several themes in the novel. I'm just going to talk about some of them, some of the bigger ones. There are obvious scriptural references and religious themes. So the waterless flood parallels Noah's flood, and God's gardeners have Adam and Eve's, and they believe that they will start a new creation. And Atwood even pays tribute to people in the novel, calling them saints. So I thought this was really interesting. The God's Gardeners remember Saint Diane Fossey, Saint Farley Mowat of the Wolves, Saint David Suzuki, Saint Terry Fox, and plus many, many more. And I just thought that this was a fun way of using people of our time who have made an impact on the world. So she chose people who, made an impact in science, with nature, with writing, and with humanity. Survival is another obvious one, and what people will do in order to survive. When everyone around them is dying and they have to face potentially their own death. So death and mortality is another theme. People have died from the waterless flood. Some people have chosen to take their own lives, and knowing that you could be next means that people have to, face their own mortality, like I said. So there are also rules around what to do with the dead. Nature is a huge theme. God's gardeners are concerned about the environment, and they have connections to nature. There is a very strong desire to treat the earth well and to protect it. Violence and objectification of women is prevalent in the story. Rape and violence are used as a form of control, and women are seen as something, only useful to fulfill sexual desires. There are many more themes as well. Free will, the control of corporations. There's a lot. And as I said, overall, I'm hoping for something more with the third book, which I will be reading next. So my favorite thing about The Year of the Flood in particular is that Atwood is very good at creating a different and yet familiar or recognizable world. And I know for her, speculative fiction is about, something that could potentially happen. So when I am reading her books that she categorizes as speculative fiction, I always try to keep that in mind. And it's also interesting, reading this over 10 years after its publication, when we are experiencing a pandemic, more of it has actually happened. And I wonder what Atwood thinks about that. So please let me know if you have read The Year of the Flood. Let me know, your thoughts on it. What did you like, or what didn't you like? I look forward to chatting with you in the comments. Thanks again for watching. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and don't forget to make every day an adventure.